Hey everyone, welcome back to Go and Grow Homestead. In today's video, we're going to talk about the different types of moths and butterflies that like to attack our broccoli plants and other brassicas. So we're going to cover kind of more specifically today the small white cabbage butterfly and the cabbage moth. So I shot this video in two different segments. So the second segment, I'll kind of go over more examples and get up close and show you the leaves and things. And for this first part of the video, I'll just show you where we see some worms and worm activity, caterpillars rather, and kind of go over the specifics of each type of pest. So first, the small white cabbage butterfly. You'll see them a lot flying around the garden in the spring and summer, and while they're pretty and they look cute and all, this is kind of what they're up to. This is the havoc they're starting to wreak on food plants. So they will lay eggs mid-spring, so around here that's April to May, and then they'll continue through the summer to mid-fall to just continually lay eggs that are going to turn into these guys all over your plants. The eggs will be small, yellow or white, kind of bullet-shaped. They're very tiny, and again, you'll see examples of that in the next segment of this video. They'll lay them on the underside of the leaf. They target brassica plants, so that includes cabbage, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. They hatch 4 to 8 days after the eggs are laid on the plant. And then when the caterpillar gets to a certain size, it will move to a different plant where it feels more safe and less exposed. It'll form a cocoon and later emerge as an adult flying moth. Then moving on to cabbage moths, which I think you'll also see some examples of that in the second segment of this video. But they are brown and operate similarly to the cabbage butterfly. Their caterpillars may be green, but you're going to see more pronounced black and brown markings on those, whereas these green caterpillars are specific to the white cabbage butterfly. Now let's talk about the destruction that they cause specifically and why that's a problem. So certainly you can see that in this video, what it's done to the broccoli leaves. A healthy broccoli leaf should be completely full and not looking like you can see its skeleton essentially. So that's not good. So when the eggs hatch, the caterpillars feed off of this plant for their growth and nutrition again until they decide to leave the plant. And this is what they do. They just destroy it, decimate it. Anytime your leaves on any plant that you're trying to grow are destroyed, bug eaten like this, unhealthy for whatever reason, if the leaves are not okay, then the rest of the plant will not be okay. The leaves are what help catch the sunlight, funnel nutrients to the core part of the plant that's trying to grow. They can also help with kind of channeling rainwater down towards key parts of the stem of your plant or the roots of your plant. So if they're not there, mainly to catch that sunlight and help everything grow, then your core plant is not going to grow. Now, how can you treat for these pests naturally? Obviously, there's all kinds of sprays, chemical-wise, that you could get that are going to help you do this. But how can we address this naturally? There's a few ways. Hand picking them off, like you'll see me do in the second segment of this video, in which I've been continuing to do to these plants through the latter part of the summer here. That is certainly a very common and important, helpful way to do that. You can reduce the numbers and reduce damage just by hand picking them off. In the spring, right after you've planted these, you can also put sheer row covers on. The row covers are designed for this purpose with this and other types of plants to prevent bug pest damage. The sheer row covers will let in light, air, and water, but they'll keep out bugs like this or flying insects that are trying to lay eggs on your plants. So in this case, it wouldn't give the moths access to your plant to lay the eggs in the first place, and then therefore you wouldn't have this problem. You can also spray with neem oil. You can read up on how to do that and what neem oil is and whether or not you think that's right for your situation. Again, I don't like to spray with anything. If you read up on neem oil, you'll kind of understand why I don't like to use that either, but certainly why it's a viable option. If I were growing this stuff to sell, though, you can see why that would be very important that I do something. Otherwise, my entire crop is going to be decimated. And now that I've done this video on the specific pest, I think I am just going to go ahead and pull all of my broccoli plants. I don't think any of them are gonna make it, and I certainly don't have the time to come out here and continue to hand pick off every single day, try to remove eggs off of the underside of the plant, which, let's see, there's a tiny one right there at the top, right there by my finger. That's also another cluster of some other kind of eggs. Yeah, I just don't have that kind of time in my day. And the reality is I should have gotten the row cover on in the spring, which was absolutely my intention, but it didn't happen. So I just pulled some of those cabbage worms off of the broccoli. Just wanted to show you a few things here. So that's their poop all collecting down in the leaves. There's some of it. And they will be all different sizes as the eggs that the moth has laid hatch at different times. So this is why when you think, okay, I got them all, well, not necessarily. There's more hiding on your leaves. So I wanted to show you a couple of examples of things and what to look for. So right there, see that little yellow worm? That's a new hatch. Look at that one right there. That is extremely tiny. Like if I back up to normal, kind of a normal view of the plant, look how well that blends in. Also, I wanted to show you the eggs. Well, this might look like it's just part of the plant, or you might think it's just something else. You might not even see it because, again, if we back up to a normal view, you really can't see that. So that's a cluster. Or so those are a couple of eggs, and yes, they really are that tiny in comparison to my thumb. This is also another cluster of different type of eggs. Right there. This one's interesting. It'll just pop right off with your finger. And there are a few different types of caterpillars that like to be on here. Look at those two different sizes. And then look, here's another couple of the cabbage worms, but look how well they blend in. And it's almost like they know where to sit on the plant. This one we can see is actively eating this hole in the leaf right here. But those moths lay their eggs on this type of plant. The eggs hatch, they have those teeny tiny worms. As they get bigger, you can finally see them. But then the worms, the caterpillars, feed off of the plant. That is obviously why you get all of the holes. That's where those holes are coming from. That's who's doing it, and that's why. This is basically their food source. These are definitely harmless to people, like when you're just removing them from the plant. They don't move fast. They don't really move much at all, but they're obnoxious. This is why I was kind of saying in the last video that I did about this that I didn't get the row cover on these plants early. And sure, I can come out here now and pick off all of these worms, pick off as many eggs as I can possibly see, but putting the row covers on now might not help much because inevitably I'm going to miss a few tiny eggs here or there, and then they're still going to get the plant. So those tiny eggs that I maybe didn't see when I was putting the row cover on, and then if I just put that on and kind of leave it and I'm not checking on it, they're going to hatch and destroy and eat the plant anyway. So broccoli's tough. There are a few things you can do naturally to try to prevent. The row covers are one thing, just covering it before the moths get a chance to lay the eggs at the beginning of the season. So if you're not familiar with the way that a broccoli plant grows, it's going to get a very wide, so in diameter, I'll put the correct measurements on the screen, but it's going to get maybe out here and a little bit out here farther with the leaves, and it'll be like a perfect circle all the way around itself. The majority of the broccoli plant is its leaves, so it'll continue to spread out, sprawl out if it's healthy. This one is not completely healthy, semi-healthy. This is about as tall as they get a little bit taller than that, but they take up a lot of space for that reason. And what will happen is from the center here, leaves just keep unfurling, and spreading out and spreading out. And these tiny leaves, they just keep growing up and out and spreading out. And then in the center will be a tiny broccoli head forming that will get bigger and bigger and bigger, of course, and you will get one broccoli head per broccoli plant. So broccoli is kind of needy in terms of space, nutrients in the soil, water needs, sunshine needs, and then pest management. So I have successfully grown a few heads of broccoli before, but the last couple of seasons it's just not been something that I can put a lot of focus into. Managing this and the timing of everything with broccoli is really important. So I wanted to take a minute to also just address the fact that if I were doing this as my full-time job as the stay-at-home mom and wife and doing this in order to support our family on a full-time basis, I would be able to prevent and easily manage all of this kind of stuff as it comes up. There are a lot of things, as you guys have seen so far throughout this season, and as if you continue watching, you'll see through the end of the season and into the fall and winter, that require management for a garden, obviously. And if you are trying to do this to make your own food supply, there's a lot of work involved in that. That might have been one of those nasty pests just now, I'm not sure. Behind the camera though, I see a bunch of the white cabbage butterflies flying all over the place. So yeah, these guys gotta go. But I would have time. I would have had time to get the row covers built. So you've probably heard me say that in several videos, like I need to get the row covers on, I need to get them on. I didn't have time to get them on. And you're going, okay, well, why don't you just get out there and put the covers on? Why didn't that happen? And the reality is when you're both working full time, you have one or more kids, you have other commitments. This is just one of another many things that is time consuming in your life and you have to make time for it. And we just didn't have the time. And the thing about the row covers that I'm talking about, they need to be built a little bit. Basically, there's some stakes in the ground. They're a hoop style, so they would go over the plants, but I need to build the stakes because I got this particular one on Amazon. And so I think I have to put the stakes together at least 2 high in order for it to be tall enough to go over the plants. Then I have to set the stakes on both sides of the rows all the way down and then actually put the sheer cover on. So it's not a quick process or a quick operation. But again, I just want to stress that if you have the time and if you get to a point in your life where you're able to have one of you quit and stay home to manage the food growing, preserving, and all of that for your home, then I want you to know it's very much doable. I have several young friends, younger than myself, who have decided to go that direction. A former coworker, other people that they know, another family member recently, she's about to quit her job and stay home and do that. And again, once you get your systems in place for your garden and you kind of learn some things the first season or two and you know what you're doing after that, then you have the time to come down here and manage whatever issues are coming up or, prevention, dealing with things in the moment, etc. And I just want to remind everybody too that that's what we used to be as a nation. That's what people groups all over the world were and still are. You have to have agriculture in order to live, obviously. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. I hear that a lot from a certain generation of people, and I don't know why they say that because they grew up as kids on farms. And I think it's just in part that, hey, this is the way the world is now. It's so commercialized. There's a lot of things going on with the way that our food system is now, and it's just a completely different shift from how we used to do it. And yeah, that's true. It does not mean, though, that you can't go back to doing that in some way by families, by the hundreds and thousands, because there's a lot of people going back to this way of life. And it doesn't mean that it's just somehow no longer doable or impossible. Lots of farmers are responsible for growing our food right now. We can be responsible for growing some of that food as well. If not, trying to get to that 80% self-sufficiency that we always talk about, where you're growing most of it, but maybe you still need to utilize a grocery store or a farm market or your Amish store down the road because you're not going to get into dairy. You don't want cows or goats, so you're not going to do your own milk, cheese, butter, yogurt, etc. That's fine. My grandparents grew up that way. The World War II generation was absolutely that way. So I knew people, and I still know people who at least lived that way in the early part of their life, where it was at least the job of one person in the family to kind of fully manage the garden side of things, but everyone in the family would have a part, right? Everyone would have a part in helping grow, preserve, pest management, deal with any issues that come up, and then there's the protein meat side of it. So, like I know my grandpa would hunt and both grandparents fished, and then they might trade something and put a little bit of money of their own towards buying a cow from somebody in the community, because they were in a farming community and they worked on a farm themselves when they were young. So it can be done. It used to be done. It still needs to be done. So whether we're going to continue to allow someone else to grow our food and produce it for us, somebody's still doing that en masse, or you decide to do it yourself. I just want to encourage everybody that it's more than doable. People are doing it. People have been doing it. People did not stop doing it. This is just because I work full time and have a kiddo, and my husband has the same, obviously. And we're always trying to manage a bunch of different projects in addition to this. It's not like, oh, it's summer, so now the only focus of our life is this garden. Obviously not. We have family functions and get-togethers. We have other demanding commitments sometimes. And then, of course, having the new septic installed this year was a big time and expense situation that came up that we weren't planning on. So those sorts of things happen. But again, I just want to encourage everybody, every summer we get great food out of this garden. The one thing that I did manage to have that lasted me all year was green beans. We're using up the last of our green beans now from last year, and I've harvested several rounds of green beans already, and I'll keep harvesting to freeze and put those away for, now going forward through the rest of the year into the next season. So I do have at least one crop where I'm doing that. And then in terms of my other crops, rhubarb is similar to that too. I've gotten more rhubarb than I need for a year, so that's great. Peas are looking fantastic this year. I won't have a whole year's worth of peas, but I'm going to have probably 6 months worth of peas for what our personal usage is. Same with acorn squash. Carrots are looking phenomenal. We'll see what they actually look like when I pull them out of the ground, but I'll have something there. And then things like the strawberries and the blueberries at least last us for the season. I'm not paying for that stuff at the store, as well as the lettuce. I grew 2 kinds of lettuce this year. They're delicious. It's phenomenal. And obviously that's another good reason to try to think about growing your own food. There's always some kind of foodborne illness happening here and there. And right now that's the cyclosporiasis. That's still going on. There's still new cases. They're still trying to pinpoint where things are coming from. It's lettuce at thousands of locations, whether it's the grocery store or a food place. And now there's jalapenos are affected, I think, by salmonella, so that's a little different. But still, the point being, if you grow your own food and you know that you're using clean fertilizer and you're not doing something to contaminate it accidentally on your own and you're taking care of your own stuff, then you know how it's being grown and you know it's safe to eat. We've not gotten sick at all, obviously, this summer. I would just say keep at it. Things like this can be very discouraging, but it's not my first rodeo with with the ups and downs of a garden, so I'm not worried about it. I'm just not going to have any broccoli this year, but hey, at least I got it planted. Last year I bought seeds and just never got a chance to get them planted, in part because I knew how much space they were going to take up, and I knew we were going to have this problem and then I would need to have time to manage it, so I just didn't even bother planting them last year. This year I bought row covers, but didn't have any time to make the row covers and actually get it on right, shortly after planting, maybe like a week after planting these. It should have been on there. But thanks for checking in with us today, guys. I hope you learned something. I hope you found this encouraging and educational. And we will see you next time at Go and Grow Homestead. Have a good day.